The Holy Spirit brought back to my remembrance. It's been a few years ago now. I don't know when it was, maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe even 7 years ago. During a meeting, during our worship, this lady came in. There were more people coming at that time. Not a lot, but maybe 25, something like that. And I remember during worship, this lady comes in the door. I didn't know her, never seen her before. Nobody knew her. She was like just a stranger to us. And she sat back there on the back row. And I just felt prompted to pray for her. Didn't know who she was, but so I just called her up, and she came. And I just asked her who she was. And she began to just tell us what was going on. And some of you guys will remember this. Maybe, I think some of you were here. But, she said, I don't even know why I'm here. I didn't even know how to get here. She said, I just got in my car and started driving. The Lord began to talk to me and tell me and give me directions. God brought me out here. I didn't even know there was a church out here. She said, I was just following the presence of God. Said he just drew me here. And I knew I was supposed to be here. And then we prayed over her about restoring things in her life. She said I was reminded of that because God's going to begin to draw them in and bring them in from the highways and the byways. They won't even know why they're coming. They won't be churched. They'll just wonder what's going on. There'll just be something there that they're drawn to. And I could see it this morning as we were worshiping. We were releasing. He was filling this place with His presence, with His glory. Fill this house with His glory. But then it was being released. I could see it like a cloud of many colors. It was all the different colors of the rainbow, but it was like a cloud that was just permeating out of this building and out those front doors and just into this area. And we're not the only ones, but I'm just saying I saw that in the Spirit, releasing His presence, releasing the glory, flooding the earth with His glory again, with His presence again. And they're going to be drawn to that. They're going to be drawn to Him when we lift Him up. Thank you, Lord. If you remember a couple months ago, before Passover, before the Corona, all the stuff, before we were lied to, made to be fearful and afraid and separated, God doesn't divide. God's called His church to come together. Come together. I said a couple of months ago that I really felt like there was something significant about the Hebrew calendar for this year, especially the 7 feasts, the 3 major feasts, that there was a weightiness on these days. There was a weightiness on this feast of the sacred calendar. I like to call it the sacred calendar because that's what it is. It's God's calendar. It's the Hebraic calendar, but it was given to Moses and the children of Israel in the wilderness, the foot of Mount Sinai. He established these feasts. He said they're eternal, they're forever. But I felt like at the beginning of this year there's going to be a weightiness, and that we needed to pay closer attention and acknowledge more the feast, not in some kind of outward celebration. That's fine if you want to do that. But it's about getting the revelation of the feast. It's about getting the revelation that's in that day. The revelation that's hidden in the dark cloud where God dwells. It's about coming up into the higher place to hear what He has to say. There's a weightiness on Passover that wasn't there before. You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and you guys have probably heard them and read the same words. You know, I have a lot of them that I haven't even read yet. It's hard to find the time to sit and just read or listen for an hour at a time. It's my excuse anyway. I'm just using it. But I know you've heard that this is the first Passover since the first Passover back in Egypt, where everybody had this confined to their homes. The first time in history. That was so the plague would pass over them. So I do believe God uses everything. But there's also, that's not the only thing, and it's not the end of a thing. It's only the beginning of a thing. And God works His purpose through those things that He establishes, through those words that He speaks. There's a time to go in, and then there's a time to come out. You go in to be prepared, to be made ready, to hear that small, still voice. Come away with me, my beloved. There's also a time to say what He has said to you, to declare the decree that He has made to you, the promise that He's spoken to your heart. So there's a weightiness, and we're in that transition, moving from Passover now. You know, we went through Passover and unleavened bread and first fruits, which altogether would be in Hebrew Pesach. Moving toward Shavuot, or Pentecost in English, in the Greek. So if there was something significant about the Passover this year, the first time that something's been done since the beginning, the origination of the thing, there was a fullness, there was a fulfilling of something, whether people realized it or not. God was doing a work. I've heard people talk about, you know, what we've been through, being, what is it? What do they call it? Whatever. Keep your distance, social distancing, and stay at home, stay isolated, all that kind of stuff. Don't come out of your houses. You know, if you do, be like Moses, cover your face. It's for a different reason, though. I'd like to have to cover my face because I'm shining so bright it blinds every person that looks at me. And I'm not there yet. Got to spend my 80 days with the Lord face to face first. If you want to shine like that. But I don't even know where I was going with that. Jesus, help me. So we're in this transition, going from Passover to Pentecost. You know, there was a time when God said, get up and leave now. It's time. If they stayed in their homes any longer, they would have died with Egypt. They wouldn't have come out. They would have died as slaves in Egypt. But they heeded the word of the Lord, the voice of God, what He said to do, and they did it. They did what He said. They came out, and they were saved. They were brought out of Egypt, and they were brought out completely made whole and wealthy, healthy and wealthy. So I believe there is a great reset. There is a great turnaround going on right now. I'm telling you. So don't panic. Don't be in fear. Don't lose hope. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. He will bring that word to pass. He's going to bring His word to pass. There's a resetting. There's about to be some making of some Christian millionaires and billionaires. There's about to be some shifting going on of what used to be will be no more. What wasn't will be. God's going to bring the insignificant. God's going to bring the unknown, those that you don't know, those that I don't know, maybe you and I. He's going to bring us out of the cave. It's time to see His word come to pass. His word will work if we will work His word. That's one of the verses the Lord gave me, arise and shine. You know, I turned 60 in January, Isaiah 60. I like that. But we're coming into Pentecost, into Shavuot. And we know with the outpouring of the Spirit on the day of Pentecost. But I'm telling you, there's something about this time this season, this year, this season of feast. There's something significant. There's something special that God is doing. Now, I've told you before that on these feast days, these appointed times, moads, appointed times of God. They're eternally appointed times. There are doors open in heaven for us to access that were not open before. Okay, Charlie Shamp just released a word. You know, this is stuff I've said for a long time now. I've been teaching this here. Some people didn't like it because they don't get it. I think it's because they don't want to get it. You got to be open to change. You got to be open to hear the new thing. You got to hear the way God is saying it. God is going to stop saying it the way that you want Him to. He's going to stop saying it the way you want to hear it. Somebody needs to hear that. He's going to stop saying it the way you want to hear it. We got to start hearing it the way He wants to say it. He's saying a new word now. He's saying a new thing now, and we got to have ears to hear it. Got to have hearts to be open so that the spirit of understanding and knowledge, counsel, wisdom can work in us to help us to get the revelation. The revelation out of heaven has to become a reality in our earth, in our life. Reveals it in you and then through you. A reality that you establish as you declare what He has decreed to you. That promise, that covenant, that dream, that desire that's in you. Call them forth. It's not time to lose hope. The enemy is trying to get people to give up and lose hope and just lay down, play dead. Just be the possum, because the noise is loud, the light's bright, so the possum freezes in the middle of the road so that the big old vehicle coming can run over it. That's what the kingdoms of this world are doing right now. Making a lot of noise, and they're shining bright lights to try to make you afraid. The possum is paralyzed in fear and will even experience death because his focus is on the wrong thing. His focus should be on crossing over, getting to the other side. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying it in a veiled kind of a way, but I'm saying it. They have an agenda, but God has an agenda that was before theirs, and it's greater and it will be done. He is watching over His word to perform it. Thank you, Father. Shavuot, Pentecost. Now this is pretty cool. When you read in Exodus about the first Shavuot, Pentecost, 50 days after Passover, right? So it's 50 days after they came out of Egypt, wandering through the wilderness. They end up at the foot of Mount Sinai, going through the Red Sea, water baptism, all that. Passover, the blood, experience the baptism. They're sealed. They're set apart unto God. You know, He separated them from the world. Egypt represents the world. Israel represents the church. Are you with me? Separated. Hallelujah. Unto Him. I heard a simple little video this morning, and this young girl, probably in her 20s, that had several dreams. And the bottom line was there's a baptism of consecration that the Lord is requiring from His sons and daughters. There is a level of consecration that the bridegroom is requiring of the bride. A baptism of consecration is coming. You know what? Help is on the way. What we could not overcome, there is a power coming to empower us to overcome it. There's an overshadowing that will bring you over. He will come over you so that you can come over it, whatever it is. We all got some its. So did Israel. The its, all the ites. They called them the ites or the its. We all got them. I was going to make a joke. It wouldn't have been a good one. Travis would have laughed, but I won't say it. Anyway, we're in this period of transition. I'm telling you, and it's the preparing. See, the seed has been sown. The harvest is growing. The harvest is ripening. You know, Pentecost was the celebration of the harvest of the wheat. Was one of the things. The wheat and the tares have been growing. Pentecost, that feast that's coming up, I don't know how many days away we are now, but there's counting of the Omer anyway, but it's 50 days from Passover. It's at the end of May or the beginning of June. I don't know. I'm not going to look up the date. It's not important right now. But it's the only feast that they actually God allowed leaven to be in their house. They didn't have to get the leaven out. And I believe that the outpouring of the Spirit on the day of Pentecost in the Bible, which was the feast day of the Lord, I told you that there's doors, special doors that heaven opens on these days. There's special access granted to us. We're supposed to receive, go through these doors, see the door, go through the door, receive what the Father is pouring out in that day, in that appointed moed time. Receive it because you're going to need it for the next thing that's coming. He's got to do a work now so He can do a greater work then. He's got to do it in you before He does it through you. That's how we used to say it. This Pentecost is coming, but He allowed a mixture. When they harvested the wheat, they also harvested the tares with them. It was all brought into the storehouse. And I believe that's what's been going on for the last 2,000 years. Ever since the Spirit of God was poured out at the day of Pentecost. Well, the first Pentecost was out Mount Zion. 3,000 died. Because what was given? The law was given at the first Pentecost. The Torah was given through Moses. And the second fulfilling of the Pentecost in the church on the day of Pentecost, 3,000 were saved because, again, the Word was given. The Word was not given to just a few. Peter preached the Word to the nations. Peter released his pay, opened his big mouth. Why? Because Peter had a big mouth. God knew Peter would do it. Peter was gifted, tooled for that day. Okay, Peter, you said a lot of things out of time, and you said a lot of things wrong in the past, but you're going to get this one right because this is going to play to your strength. Just open your big mouth and tell them what I've done. And that's what he did. He preached the gospel. He preached that Christ, who you guys crucified, He's Messiah. You just killed your own Messiah. But it's okay. He's going to forgive you. In the last days, He's going to pour out His Spirit. Your sons and daughters are coming. Don't lose hope. It's all part of God's plan. 3,000 were saved on that day. Now, I was thinking about the first Pentecost because we are coming into that in about a month or whatever. Exact days, 30 days, whatever it is. This is the time we need to prepare for it. We need to understand what is going to be open in that door. What is God going to pour out? What is God doing? Anyway, Charlie Shamp received a word. I didn't finish that. I could have read the word, but go to his website. That's theencountersinternational.com. You can read his word. It's on Facebook, other places. He saw a great door in heaven. And God told him that this big door, this huge door, was going to open on Pentecost this year. It lines up with everything the Lord has been saying to me for a long time. But especially this year about the weightiness and something. There's just something special. This is an appointed time. This is like an appointed time within appointed times. It's like the church within the church. It's like the remnant within the whole robe or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's like a day within days. Something special. God is doing something, and it's to change us. It's to equip us. It's to empower us. Now, so as I was thinking about this morning, right before I came back here for church, because that's when I start getting the word. He won't give it to me until then. And I have to search it out and dig it out, and I got to just be paying attention to every little thing because He's trying to show me. Moses, remember when they came out and came to Mount Sinai, Moses went up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, originally, God wanted all of Israel to come up. It wasn't just one man. It wasn't just the leadership. Hello, it wasn't just the clergy. It was all of us. It was the whole nation. It was all of His sons and daughters, all of His people. He wanted everybody to come on up there together as one and meet with me. Because He had separated them, called them out. But they longed for Egypt. They refused to go because they were afraid. because they were still seeing themselves as a slave instead of a son. Moses knew he was a son. Moses knew he had a rod of authority in his hand. That he had a purpose to fulfill. Every one of them did, but not all fulfilled their purpose. He went up there for 40 days and 40 nights. The Torah was given. I believe it's a picture when Moses came down, what he came down with the commandments, right? Came with the 2 tablets of stone. And when he got to the bottom, they were having an orgy. They were having this big, wild, crazy Egyptian-style party. They were just having a good time in the flesh. Oh, man, the church been doing that. And out of righteous indignation, or just because Moses had a problem with temper anyway, remember him killing the Egyptian? Peter couldn't keep his mouth shut. Moses couldn't contain his anger sometimes. Remember, he struck the rock when you're supposed to speak to it. I mean, there's a pattern here. Hello, these aren't perfect men. They're just like me and you, Carl. Well, like you, Carl. Just like me and you, Carl. They got imperfections. We got problems. We got issues. We got it's in us. But I saw something in this. And then Moses turns around and goes back up. God's grace is sufficient. His mercy is new. God could have said, Moses, sorry, you blew it. This was your one chance. They messed up, I know, but look what you did. You were just with me for 40 days and nights. You messed up too, Moses. He allowed Moses to come back for 40 more days and nights. Just a different way to look into this. And I saw this, the first 40 days and nights. You know, and I was thinking about this. Jesus, it says in the New Testament that Jesus, after he was resurrected, he met with his disciples for how many days and nights? 40. 40 days and nights, instructing them in the ways of the kingdom, telling them, talking to them. I mean, he'd been doing it for 3.5 years or whatever you want to believe. He'd been with them, but these were the deeper things. This was really the revelation, the revealing of who they really were. They had to have that identity established, and they had to know what kind of authority they were going to be given on Pentecost for them to walk in. There was a greater power coming. Something greater than the old covenant was coming. See, the first 40 days was establishing the old covenant when Moses was on the mountain. The second time he went back up for the second 40 was establishing a new covenant. I know it wasn't seen yet, but it was established in the heavenlies. When Moses went up the mountain, he wasn't going up just on a natural mountain. There was a place where there was a shift. There was a transition out of this realm into that realm. You can read it in Exodus. They stood on the floor of the sapphire stones. Him and all the 70 elders. That's as far as they would go, that transition place. Most people, they want to go in the Spirit, but they don't want to go all the way. They go a little ways, but that's it. They want to say no. We got to go all the way. You got to be all in to win. My doctor told me that last month. You got to be in it to win it. I said, okay, I'm in it. I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it. So, the second 40 days, I believe it was all part of the plan, a divine order. God established that new covenant. The Lamb had already been slain. It was spoken. It was revealed that something greater was going to come. Jesus, 40 days, equipping them ready, getting them ready for something greater that was to come. Are you with me? And 10 days later, so the disciples go. They sit in the upper room for 10 days. 40 plus the 10 make the 50, which from Passover to Pentecost. And I believe that there's been those that have been sitting with the Lord for the 40 days. And we've been listening, we've been hearing, we're learning, we're being equipped, we're being changed, we're being opened up, we're being awakened, all those things. The revelation is being given to prepare us for something greater that's coming. I believe that's the door that Charlie Shamp saw. I saw that same door back the first time Gary Beaton ever came here. I saw this huge red door in heaven. And it was a door that behind it was going to be greater power. And I saw 3 angels. One of them was holding a clock, like a clock about time, the times and seasons. Another one was holding keys to unlock what's been locked. And I can't remember what the other one was holding right now. What was it? Oh, a compass. Direction. This is the way to go. This is the time. I've given you the authority, the keys. Going to make a way. He's a miracle worker, way maker, promise keeper. Light in the darkness. He's going to show us the way. Going to come out of where you are into the new thing. So the second 40, that thing is established in heaven. It's fulfilled. It's done. It's already done. Jesus prepared the early church. But there is another fulfilling of the last days church. They had a down payment. They had the first fruits. We get to see the fullness of it. The fullness, the full revelation of who He is. The full demonstration of His power. That's that door. It's a door of the greater. We're almost there. The Feast of Tabernacles, which is the Rosh Hashanah, Day of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and then Tabernacles itself, 8 days. Just like the Passover, the original 8 days of unleavened bread. Pentecost is coming. Tabernacles is coming. God is going to dwell in the midst of His people in a way that He's never dwelt. There is a power from heaven coming. There is something that's been held that's about to be released. It's been withheld. You know, the Lord said it to me like this. I think it was like last year. What you have held in your heart, you will now hold in your hands. What's been in your heart, you're going to see it now in your hands. In other words, it's, having a revelation is one thing. Having the Word is one thing. Knowing the Word is one thing in here. But taking hold of it, using it, putting the Word to work in your life, and seeing the demonstration of that Word, the reality of that revelation being worked out through you, for you, with you. Not apart from you. It's for you. It's through you. It's with you. Something greater is coming. There's a greater door opening. Thank you, Lord. And that, I believe, is the fulfilling of the last 3 feasts. The greatest is, the last is Tabernacles, the 7th feast. If you count them, Rosh Hashanah would be 6, Day of Atonement would be 7, Tabernacles is 8, but the 3 kind of, they're all in the same season. When this door opens, this door is going to lead us into that. You got to understand that, because from Tabernacles, or from Pentecost, then in the appointed time, in God's sacred calendar, there is a tabernacle day coming. And it's something greater than we have ever experienced. It is, I believe, heaven being open, full access, the kingdom coming, first in you and then through you. See, right now we're in this month of ER, or Eor, I say Eor, it's ER, which is the second month on that calendar. It's the month for increase. It's the month for an increase in light and revelation. That's what the Hebrews teach. It's a month, it's the second month, the number 2. It's a month of the Father revealing who His sons and daughters are. 2 is the number for a son in the Father's house. Sons and daughters. 2 is a number of witness, being a witness of who He is. In other words, being a witness on earth of what's in heaven. You being the gospel. You being the epistle read, a living epistle read by all men. It's the month associated. Judah was the first month of Nisan. This is the tribe of Issachar. Have understanding of the times and the seasons that they're in. Understanding the Moad, the appointed day. Understanding the feast, the appointing of these feast days, and why they're important. Why this calendar is important to follow. Why is it important to wake up and acknowledge and be aware? Because there's something greater that God is doing now. And we don't want to miss out. We don't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason. We want to be like Issachar, understanding the times and the seasons to know what they ought to do. In other words, they knew how to position Israel for the feast day. They knew how to position Israel for when the door in heaven opened and poured out, they would be in the right place under the spout so they could shout how awesome our God is. Look at the harvest He's brought in for us. Look at the supply. Look how He's protected us through all of this, with the nations around us all hating us, but they can't touch us. He's their covering. He's their protector. He's their provider. He is their purpose for being alive. Same thing in the church. Hosea chapter... I don't want to go there first. Yeah, I'll go there first. Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. Just one verse. You got to stay with me. So this transition time, this time we're preparing, and then Pentecost at Tabernacles will be another time of getting ready for the fullness, the capstone coming. Grace, grace. Double. Oh, come on, Jesus. Fullness, more. This is when Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. It's a prophetic promise. This is a covenant promise. This is a promise. You know, I talked about that during worship. This is a covenant. This is a promise that God made way back with Noah. Then He made it with Abraham. The Noahic and Abrahamic covenant. The Davidic covenant. Israel was a child. Moses brought them out. Then I loved him and called my son. There's something in that. It's His love that matures us. It's coming into the revelation and understanding of His unending, unconditional, the fullness of His love. God is love, of who He is, that brings us to maturity. It's not the law. It's not even the truth. It's His love that brings us into that truth, that brings us in to that grace of God for us. It started with love, and I'm telling you, it ends with love. His love. Hallelujah. It's going to mature us. So just fall in love with Jesus again. We need to fall in love with Jesus all over again. I need to be head over heels in love with Jesus. I need to be infatuated with Him again. I need to be giddy about Him again. The joy, the excitement, the expectation of getting to see Him. You know what I'm talking about. That first love. There's two words used here, child and son, with love in the middle. And there are two different words in Hebrew. The first was child, nahar. Na'ar, I don't know how to say it. It's a word for an infant. Infancy to adolescence. For the Hebrews, that's what it says in the Strongs. It's about a little bitty baby growing up into adolescence. So it's all about being young, immature. What's going to mature us? The love of God. It's not how much you know. You can know all of it. Jesus said that. You just be a clanging cymbal. You're just going to make a bunch of noise. Yeah, so you can preach loud. So what? Are you putting the word to work? Is it working in your life? Are you overcoming every it? Every ite? Nahar. But then he uses a second word, my son. Called my son. He's calling his sons. Babies won't understand, but the sons will. The sons know the voice of their father. It's the word ben or bain in Hebrew. Yeah, listen to me. It means, these are some of the meanings. I picked out the ones I like. Anyway, bain means sons of God. It's a mature one, okay? In the Hebrew, it'd be teknon or weos. If you were reading Greek, in Greek, I said Hebrew. In the Greek New Testament, in the Greek, that's the words that they would use. Those are Greek words. But That's not God's language. The Hebrew language is God's language. So it's the Nahar and the Ben. Sons of God. This word for son means an order. Like you're in a order of something. Some kind of order that's been before you come into that same order. Like the order of Melchizedek. Like the order of Christ. The order of the kingdom. Divine order. It means not just an infant that just plays all the time, stays in their playpen, maybe gets out in the yard when they're a toddler and get a little older, 10, 11, 12 years old. You're still playing. You're still maturing. You're still young. You're immature. You're not ready for the father to hand the keys to the car. Well, some of you might have been at 12. I was, because I had to be. But there's a maturity going on. And that's what this verse is talking about. That's what God hid in the Hebrew here. The Bane, the sons of God. It means the builder, one that can be a builder of the family name. What does that mean? That means a son or daughter that's mature enough now that has reached the age to reproduce. To have sons and daughters. See, we've grown up. We've matured. It's time to birth our sons and daughters. And to release them, to train them, to equip them, to acknowledge them. That's what I've been doing. Telling them who they really are. Just like that 40 days Jesus told those guys, this is who you really are. They hadn't got it until then. They hadn't got it. Because he was dead on the cross and they all ran and hid. Feared for their life. They didn't get it. They didn't know who they were yet. They were getting it. We've got to tell our sons and daughters who they are. The world says you're no good. We say you're God's best. The world says you're ugly. We say you're beautiful. The world says you've made too many mistakes. God says, what mistakes? I don't even remember. What are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about the blood of my son, right? I washed it all away. The world says you're unworthy. You're just like me. Jesus says you're worthy because you're just like me. Yes. The world says, yeah, but look at, you got to keep the laws. You're not perfect. Look at all the bad stuff look at all the mistakes you're making. Look how the mess your life is. God says, I see the beginning all the way to the ending. I see who you really are. You're not what you were. You're not what you do. You are who I have said that you are. You're just like me. I made you in my image and my likeness. They say you're not good enough. I say my son was good enough. Your identity is now in him. Back here, God punished. Over here, God blesses and blesses and blesses you and loves you into divine order. He reveals his love to you. He reveals your worth to him. He reveals your identity. He reveals your destiny. Only good things, every good and perfect gift comes from the Father above. Because he's preparing you to carry on, to carry his work on, to do his will, to establish his kingdom. Passover was the beginning. Pentecost, a transitioning and an acceleration into Tabernacles, the ending. The fullness, the last feast to be fulfilled in the earth through sons and daughters. It is the feast of the sons and daughters. It is the feast of the unveiling or the revealing. It is the feast of unlimited glory. Let's call it the feast of glory. The feast of the open book. All revelation will be known. It's the full revealing of Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's coming. Builder of the family name. God loves sons and daughters. God loves babies. God loves for us to reproduce. Not only in the spirit, but in the natural. It's his way. Jews, they have lots of kids because it's God's way. He said, replenish the earth. You know, there's moves going on right now through certain people and organizations. They're wanting to control the population. They're wanting to depopulate. They're wanting to get rid of the sectors of, you know, the social sectors that are unpleasing or aren't pretty, or they don't see them as useful anymore. They're wanting to get rid of all of that. Sharon and I always had a joke between ourselves, you know. You know, we see somebody, a couple, oh, they're the pretty people. Yeah. And we were just the common folks, you know. Well, they were the pretty people, you know. They were born into wealth or whatever. And we were just the, you know, the other ones. That's actually is like socialism. Guess what? In Christ, we're the pretty people. We are those. We are those. We're the apple of his eye. Anyway. So this word son, builder of the family name, it speaks about relationship. The root word is benah for this word for son here. Not ne'ar, not a young, immature baby, infant to adolescent, but a mature son that the father can say, this is my beloved son, my loved son. I've loved him, therefore he's matured. Because the father's he knows the love of his father, his identity is secure. And because he knows my love and he has loved me with that same love, I can trust him fully. So the father gives his keys to his kingdom, to his influence, authority, power, business, whatever it is that the father, whether he is a priest in the temple or whether he is a businessman in the streets of Jerusalem, he would give the keys, he would give the authority through the decree to his son. He would put upon his son a new robe. A father putting a robe upon his son and daughter. This is my beloved son or my beloved daughter in whom I am fully pleased. Acceptance gives you access. Full acceptance gives you full access. Are you fully loved? Are you fully accepted in the beloved Son? Then you have full access. What are we waiting for? We have been given the keys to the kingdom. The Father has given us the keys. Keys represent authority. They open doors, they close doors. They unlock and they lock. On earth as it is in heaven. The Father, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. When the Father would decree that over his Son, he was taking all that the Father was and putting it on or in the Son. He was saying, when you see my Son, you see me because I'm in him. And he's in me. We are one. Not two, we're one. Sons and daughters who look just like their Father. What's been missing in the church are mothers and fathers to mature, nurture, grow up sons and daughters, to birth them, to change their diapers, to love them no matter what they do. Just like the Father loved us through it, we got to love them through it. We got to speak truth to them, but not to kill them. Truth to heal them, to love them in. Love is going to mature us. We got to mature and we got to raise them up. Teach them the ways of our fathers and mothers. Teach them the ways of God. Teach them the ways of heaven. Teach them how to see God, how to hear God, how to know God. Instruct them in all your ways so that you can then release them to go and do likewise. To go. Jesus matured 12. You may only have one your whole life. God requires you to raise up. You better raise them up the right way. Not in the image of religion. Not in the image of some false idol. But in the image of God. The likeness, the nature of your Father. The root word banah means to build or to rebuild or to restore. To establish for a cause or because of a cause, something is being established. To reproduce children. We need to fill the kingdom. That's the only page I got. We need to fill the kingdom with sons and daughters. But you don't birth them and then, abandon them. You birth them and you adopt them as your own. And you raise them. And it's by loving them. Loving them when they make a mess. Teaching them, yes. Instructing them, yes. But loving them. They know who they are. They're not what they were. They are becoming who He is. They're maturing. They're changing. They're growing. And you can see that. And there's nothing that blesses a mother and a father more than to see their children raised up with their values and their beliefs, that they will go and do the same as if it was them. I'm not talking about something that's perverted or something that's unclean. I'm talking about what's in heaven. I'm talking about mothers and fathers who are like our Father in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Holy is His name. There's going to be a lot of people that come with a lot of hurts, a lot of trust issues. It's the hardest things for a person to trust another person, especially if a person hurt them. Just if you look like that. It's hard for people to fully trust God. Maybe that's the issue. They don't know His heart yet. So you have to keep loving them until they know your heart. Until they know that they know that they know that you are not going to ever hurt them. That you have their best interests at heart always. You want to just pour into them. You want to see them make it the way that God poured into you and helped you make it, or your father in the Lord, or whoever. Some of us in the last generation, I believe we just pretty much raised ourselves. There wasn't fathers and mothers, but in this move, there's going to be. We're going to come into maturity.